Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I've decided to just give some tips on kind of how to apply for internships and placements, already kind of going through the cycle once and learning more from my previous video, which I'll show somewhere here or maybe a clip. Basically, there was a lot of errors made within the cycle, and I don't want you guys to make the same error as me. I had a lot of mistakes in terms of what I wanted to do, kind of what I was targeting and things that I could have done much earlier, and I feel like a lot of people know this already. However, I'm going to regurgitate it and also add some stuff on top of it. So I'll segregate this video into essentially 3 parts. So it'll be kind of the initial before screening and before actually applying. And the second part will be how to deal with all the responses and sort of the ways to go after or during applying. And then the final stage will just kind of be a concept that I feel like is a good mindset when going into applying for internships, placements, or grad schemes and anything similar. So why should you listen to me? Well, personally, I've taken hundreds of rejections this internship cycle, but I somehow managed to get a wealth management internship at CTF Life Insurance in Hong Kong, which is currently owned by one of the biggest 4 richest. And I've also got a HR internship that's fully remote but based in the UK. And essentially what I do within the HR internship is hold the screening process and the interviews. So hopefully I can share some of these experiences with you, and hopefully you'll be successful in the next internship cycle. So the first step would be obviously getting your CV ready. Now you may be wondering, especially if you're in first year, how do I get my CV ready? Well, there are many things that you can do. It doesn't have to be necessarily getting a part-time job. It could be doing things such as attending activities, joining societies, doing some volunteering work, and there are so many other things that I could list. However, these are kind of the 3 key things that come to the top of my head. Although getting a part-time job is very effective because obviously there are many ways to test and prove your skills and abilities. So it's not really particularly for the CV. The CV's there just to give a good green flag indication to the employer or the recruiter that you are a valid candidate, but the actual experience that you get from those part-time works and society and extracurricular activities is for responding during the behavioural section of an interview. So for example, if I asked you, how did you play a part as a team and how did that lead to success? You'd have a variety of examples if you joined more extracurricular societies and part-times. And of course, not everyone will do that. However, you could also use schoolwork, like group work projects, to compensate for the other things that you didn't do. So no matter what kind of stage you're at, it doesn't really matter, but if you're at the early stage, I would recommend to join as many societies as possible, get a part-time job potentially, and just do some extracurricular activities, so then you'll have more so-called stories for the interview stage, and it'll also look nicer on your CV. Now you may be asking a question, maybe not. How do I write my CV? There are a lot of templates and there are a lot of industries. The template that you use should be tailored to the industry that you want to go to. So for example, if I want to go to finance and investment banking, or asset management, or an area like credit risk in finance, typically you would want something like a 1-page CV, and there are many templates out there. However, I'm not sure about other industries such as STEM or medicine and maths, for example. I'm not too sure. However, if you just search up, maths CV template or medicine CV template, it will be similar for you. Typically 1 to 2 pages is kind of like the universal standard, specifically for the UK. Obviously there are some countries like Hong Kong which may require you to have a photo on your CV. However, do check with your region and your industry. Those are the 2 key things for writing a CV. You may also be wondering, what should I put in my CV? Well, there's a lot of things that you can put in your CV. There's education, there's your actual work experience at part-time jobs, And in your volunteering section, such as extracurriculars and societies, you can also include your skills, and then if you have space, maybe some hobbies. And if you've done something additionally more impressive outside of your curriculum, you can also include that on your CV. I'll have a link to my personal CV and my CV template in the link in the description below. So now you know how to write your CV and what to include in your CV and how to put things on your CV, aka actually joining societies and doing extracurricular activities. What should you do when you have applied and you're waiting for a response? One thing that I didn't do during the previous internship cycle or internship application cycle is creating a tracker. It is very tedious mentally and physically to write down every single company, what role you wrote with them or applied with them, and then tracking them, whether you got through one stage, second stage, third stage, etc. It is very tedious, but it will pay through the long run. There are many benefits to it. I could list multiple, however, I'll just give two right now. So the first one would obviously be, you'll know where your common rejection area is. So for example, if you get through screening stage, that's great, it will be green. And then if it's red, then in the second stage, then you'll instantly see that the majority of the time you're getting rejected, for example, through higher view or an online assessment. And within those, you can check whether it was a situational judgment test or whether it was a deduction test, or depending on the type of test, and then you can work on that alongside for future applications or the next application cycle. A second benefit to actually creating a tracker is so that you personally know how many you've actually applied to. So you could just say mentally, like for example with mental accounting, you could just say like, yeah, I spent £10 this week, but did you spend more? Did you spend less? With a tracker, you'll exactly know how many firms you applied to. So if you say you applied to 300, you'll have 300 rows. If you have more, then great. If you didn't, then and have less, then obviously you haven't applied to 300, and there'll be multiple firms out there waiting for your application. So I'll also have linked down below in the description a few places where you can start off for specifically for like investment banking and finance. It will give you like essentially 500 firms to 300 to 500 firms where you can start applying, and they're like considered boutique or bulge bracket firms. So that would be a good starting point if you're specifically aiming to finance, because obviously I'm an eco and finance student, so yeah. And the third point is to do with the actual online assessments. So with online assessments, they say that with the majority of them that you have a certain X number of calendar days or X number of working days in order to complete them. Those are inevitable. The only way you can really prepare for those is to do multiple practice pass questions, or like online questions, kind of like preparing for an exam. Just do past paper questions before you actually apply for the screening. So once you've done multiple tests, then apply using your CV and then do the online assessments, because obviously at that point you'd be ready. So those are inevitable. However, for those ones that give you unlimited time essentially, or a longer spread of time, so a month for example, so like the job simulation, what I've found and what I've been told by multiple people is that don't rush them, because the reason why they're so long is to give you time to prepare. The whole point of the job simulation is to represent what it would actually be like on the job. So they want you to be prepared and have a rough guidance or a strong guidance in terms of what you'd actually be doing on the job. So they expect you to prepare. So for example, I know Deloitte have a job simulation. For that, you have to prepare kind of, for example, if you're going to tax consulting or M&A consulting, you look into the sector, what you're doing in a day-to-day life, and the sort of nature of workload that you'd be given. So if it's very time pressurized and you have long working hours and they want you to be very risk seeking, they would expect to see these sorts of behaviors through your responses and sort of the time it takes for you to respond to that question. So those are my 3 key tips for applying to any type of job, whether it be an internship, a placement, or a graduate scheme, or anything similar to those lines. So an additional tip that I'd like to give is to treat internships like speed dating. You have your desired choice of person, and essentially what it is you just talk to them for 5 minutes, and if you like them, you keep talking to them, and if you don't, then you just move on to the next one straight away. The reason why you should treat internships like this is because if you hold on to a rejection and you start doubting yourself, you'll start becoming inefficient, and then you'll start doubting yourself with other applications, which may actually in turn decrease your performance. So what I found is that if you get a rejection, just move on. There's no point in thinking about why did the company reject me? Why did they not want me because I'm such a great candidate? Everyone's a great candidate in themselves. Every one of us has a unique skill. But why did they reject us? Maybe because of wrong timing. Maybe because we lacked a certain skill and someone had a little bit of a better skill than what we had at the time. Or just simply by the fact that we got unlucky during the screening. As a HR intern, I know that for a fact that a lot of people can get rejected just because of maybe 1 or 2 points, for example, within a screening rejection, especially with smaller startup companies. So basically what I'm trying to say is that if you take the rejection from a company to heart too much, then it will affect your further performance, and then you'll get more and more rejections, which will worsen your mental health. So the best thing you should do is take the rejection on head on and move on to the other one and just forget about it. And don't take the company to heart. And if you really like that company, then reapply to them in the next internship cycle. And those are all the tips that I have for you today. If you have any further tips that you'd like to share within the comments below, please feel free and I'll respond to you as soon as possible. And thank you for watching, guys. Hopefully you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.